Fred and Rose West, a couple who had murderous intent to the point they killed their own children. Hi, I'm Louise and this is the Enigma Within, where we talk about true crime, creepy stories and the paranormal. Fred and Rose West have been described as the epitome of evil. They met in 1969. Fred was 28 and Rose was just 15 years old. At the end of 1969, Fred's wife left him, and by the end of that year, Rose had moved in and was helping to look after their children, and they were living together as a couple. There are many different stories about who was the violent one with Fred and Rose West. Some people saying that it was Fred because in his admissions he had stated that Rose had no idea about any of the crimes that he had committed. However, according to Rose's children, she would hit them, she would abuse them, and it was quite common for her to be the violent one. So in 1971, Fred was in prison for petty theft and driving charges, leaving Rose to look after, at the time, 3 different children. They ended up having 10 overall. It was believed at this point, so there's not really much evidence to support this, but it was believed that at this time, Rose, under the stress of having a newborn and looking after 2 children at just 17 years old, felt all of the pressure and decided the best way to relieve this pressure is to murder one of the children. So 8-year-old Carmine was murdered. Nobody really knows what happened other than the fact that it's believed that Rose hid the body, and then once Fred was released from prison, he buried her underneath the kitchen floor. The murder only seemed to bring Fred and Rose closer together, and between 1973 and 1979, together they committed 8 more murders. Their final murder was Heather West, another one of their children. Heather was attempting to stop her father's abuse and her parents' abuse by telling a friend about it. They dismembered her and buried her remains underneath the garden patio. And they told their other children that Heather had left for a job in south of England. It did become a family joke that Heather was underneath the patio. Now, the children had no evidence for this themselves. It was just kind of an ongoing joke that the parents had murdered her and she was buried underneath the patio. And this joke is what brought Fred and Rose down. And then in 1994, 7 years after Heather went missing, her remains were found exactly where her siblings joked they would be. When arrested, Fred was very, very cooperative with authorities and admitted to 11 murders and helped them find the bodies of 12. Fred would state that Rose had no knowledge of the murders, and while doing this, Rose was completely distancing herself from Fred and was remaining innocent, which she does to this day. On New Year's Day in 1995, they found Fred dead in his jail cell. His death was ruled a suicide before his day in court. As for Rose, shortly after being found guilty, she received 10 life sentences and tried to appeal, but her application to appeal was refused, and she is currently still alive and serving a life sentence in HM Prison Newhall, where she still says that she is innocent and that she had nothing to do with this crime.